Good morning. My name is Nicholl Montgomery, and I am one of the judges for the 2021 Boston Globe Homebook Awards. And this morning, I have the pleasure of being in conversation with Carole Boston Weatherford about Floyd Cooper and their collaboration on Unspeakable, the Tulsa Race Massacre. And so, welcome.
Thank you, Nicholl, and thank you for serving as a judge and for choosing Unspeakable along with your fellow judges for this honor.
Oh, it was such a pleasure. I mean, I have my copy of the book here. Such a wonderful book, so well done. Any chance I get, I'm telling teachers, I'm like, you need this book on your shelf, please get it, teach it, talk about it. And so really, just wanted to talk about, a little bit about, Floyd, your relationship with him, how you met, how this collaboration came to be.
Okay. I'd love to. Well, I'm going to start off with a wardrobe disclaimer, not a malfunction, but a disclaimer. I don't usually wear t-shirts for professional Zooms, but I'm wearing this t-shirt, which is for the African American Children's Book Festival in Philadelphia, because that is the annual event where Floyd and I met, and it was really where I most often saw him. It's a gathering the first Saturday of February that brings together people who love books, but also it brings together the family of African American authors and illustrators, and that is where Floyd and I became family. So that is where I met him. And of course, I went on to collaborate with him on two books. First, Becoming Billie Holiday. And we both got to sit on the stage at the Coretta Scott King breakfast that year, because this book won an author honor and Floyd won the Illustrator Award for his book, The Blacker the Berry. So that was our first collaboration. Of course, our second collaboration was the last book that he would see published during his lifetime, Unspeakable, the Tulsa Race Massacre.
And so, putting this together, was there any stories that Floyd shared with you about, like, I know he's from Tulsa and his grandfather was actually alive during the massacre. Was there any stories or moments that he shared with you that have stuck with you that you might want to share with us?
Well, Floyd really immersed himself in the race massacre once he took on the project. And he not only sent me clippings about recent news that either had to do with the massacre itself or with reparations, but even a song that was performed by the blues singer Kebmo about the massacre. So he was really, he had created this whole, sensory experience around the massacre, I believe, that enabled him to channel the spirits of the survivors and of those who died in the massacre. He found out sometime after, or he recalled sometime after signing the contract, that his grandfather, Grandpa Williams, was a survivor of the race massacre. His grandfather was a teenager at the time and was told to flee on his bike by a white man he was working with or for at the time. And so he survived the massacre and of course was able to become Floyd's ancestor. So that was probably the most powerful story. I was not aware of the story until I read Floyd's illustrator's note in the book, in the galleys. And it was then that I realized, how close Floyd was to the massacre. I have saved many of the messages that I got from Floyd, and I wanted to share a few of them. So I want to share the first message that I sent to him about the book. Hi, Floyd. This was in September 2018. This just came to me. You and I should do a picture book on Black Wall Street. I envision a book-length poem, perhaps starting with Once Upon a Time. I won't be able to draft till January. What do you think? Floyd wrote back, oh my God, of course, OMG. I must do this. I was born and raised in Tulsa near the intersection of Greenwood, Archer, and Pine Streets. Hashtag the Gap Band, hashtag Black Wall Street. I know your roots, so it's a go. Once upon a time in Tulsa. So that was how the idea was born and how I invited Floyd to collaborate with me. At this later stage of my career, I have begun looking to pair my narratives with illustrators for whom the narrative will speak to their heart. And I knew this would speak to his heart. And it's what, as Floyd called it, narrative to heart. I call it passion project. And so I knew this was going to be a passion project for Floyd because of his Tulsa roots, you know, not even knowing that his grandfather had survived the massacre at that time, you know, at the beginning when I first approached him. But I just knew that he would bring passion to the project. And of course, I loved his artwork. Even before I knew Floyd, and even before I was a published author myself, I was reading Floyd's books to my children. One of the earliest books that they received as a gift from their grandmother was Brown Honey and Broomwheat Tea by Joyce Carol Thomas and illustrated by Floyd. So I have loved his work for a long time, and I came to also know and love Floyd as well.
And since we're on his books and, you know, thinking about all that's going on with like Black books for Black children written by Black authors and like, you know, this kind of trying to push them to the side and ban them, which books would you say are like that he's illustrated that all Black children just need to read? Like what should be on our shelves? What do we really need to read?
Oh, that's really hard. You know, I could almost just go down the bibliography. I can, you know, start with Brown Honey and Broomwheat Tea. I mean, Black children need to read books not just about history, but books about home, right. Books about hope, books about happiness. Right. So, you know, Floyd ran the gamut. I mean, I can tell you that as a professor of children's literature, I've used his books in my classrooms for many years, and some of them, and of course, as a mother, I shared his books with my kids. So I'm just going to kind of run down a list of titles that I can recall, and forgive me if I don't remember the authors of all of them. Meet Denitra Brown by Nikki Grimes, and my daughter loved that when she was a girl. I used Floyd's biography that he also wrote, Jump. It's a biography of Michael Jordan, and it's got this gatefold in it where Michael Jordan is, you know, doing a jump shot. So I've used that in my classroom. I pair it with some other biographies of Michael Jordan, and my students do text-to-text comparisons with that. These Hands, which is about a grandfather who works in a bread factory, but he's not allowed to touch the dough. It was in the Jim Crow, set during the Jim Crow era. And another book, a historical book of Floyd's, which really hits close to home for me because it's set just outside my hometown of Baltimore, in Baltimore County. It's called A Ride to Remember by Amy Nathan and Sharon Langley. And it's about the integration of an amusement park where I myself could not go as a young girl because it had not yet desegregated until the early 1960s. Sharon Langley, the co-author of that book, was one of the first children, was the first African-American child to ride that merry-go-round after the amusement park desegregated. So those are a few of his titles. You know, and then of course, any of the works that he did with Joyce Carol Thomas, he collaborated with her several times.
Okay, thank you. I mean, that's a great list just to start. I know he so many books, and like I said, right now I'm just trying to think about how we get them all and make sure that they get into children's hands. And so if you had a chance to do one more project with Floyd, what would it be? What do you think you would have asked him, would like to do with him next?
I don't know. But what I'll do, I'm going to read my very last message to him. Congratulations on the Boston Globe Horn Book Honor. Surely the first of many accolades to come for our Unspeakable. And then I asked him the question, what shall we collaborate on next? And of course, I never heard back because I didn't realize at the time that he was as ill as he was. I didn't even know he was ill, to be honest. But, you know, maybe, I don't know, maybe we can work on something about my hometown next, since we've done his. I'm not sure what the subject would be, but I'm just sorry that we won't have the chance. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And do you think that you would ever do a biography of Floyd Cooper for young people?
I hadn't thought about that. That might be interesting. I don't do biographies of many living people.
Right.
And was, he is with the ancestors now. So I don't know. That's an idea.
That would be a beautiful. I mean, but then like,
he's certainly worthy of a biography.
Oh, definitely. That would definitely be a great project, and I think with your relationship, you would be a great person to kind of do that, right? And just the knowledge that you have.
Yeah, his story is very compelling. I did not realize that. Even though he lived in Tulsa, I think he said. I think I read in his biography that he moved around 11 times when he went to 11 different elementary schools. I mean, can you imagine, that kind of childhood and that kind of adversity? But yet art became his currency because he was a good artist, and that was how he gained recognition. And I guess introduced himself to each new school, a new teacher, and of course went on to get a scholarship to the University of Oklahoma, where he majored in art.
Now I think that would be a very powerful and beautiful story, especially for young people who are, who are struggling, right? To see that.
Thank you for the idea. I just might pursue that.
Yes, I hope you do. Because I do think that this next generation needs to be introduced to his work, and his work needs to be continued, and we need to honor him in that way. And I think that, like I said, I think your relationship would be a great way to go into that. I think just hearing the story of him moving around is just even interesting, and even the stories that you have about his grandfather, right? And I think that would be a beautiful way to honor him. So,
and I think kids would be as they were fascinated when he did his art demos live. They would probably be fascinated to hear about his technique, his oil erasure technique, which is a subtractive medium where he put a ground of oil paint on canvas or paper. I'm not sure what he used as a surface, but he then began erasing it, and then he would add more paint after the image had appeared through erasure. So I don't know how he did it. I'm explaining it, but I don't know how he did it. And right. I've seen him do it, but I don't know how he does it.
And so, thinking about Unspeakable, is there like one image here that was just like the most impactful? What was the most impactful image for you in Unspeakable, like after seeing the book put together?
Well, I think it's the cover image, because I just, in terms of composition, it's perfect. In terms of the what do they call it, the golden triangle, the proportion. And then if you look at this, what's at the center of the image, and it's this girl's eye. Right. She's got one eye open. None of the other people on the cover have their eyes open. Right. They're fleeing Greenwood, probably with only the belongings that they can hold in their hands, and they're in an embrace and running at the same time. But it's the way that the girl's eye peers out from the cover, as if to say, believe your eyes. It's so we have so much fake news and fake truth nowadays, where people say this didn't happen and that didn't happen. It's not what you saw. Yes, it is. Which believe your eyes. This happened. It may have been the Tulsa Race Massacre may have been swept under the rug for 70 years, but it did happen. Believe the photographs. Believe the eyewitness accounts. Believe the statistics. It happened, and we have yet to pay reparations to the people who suffered as a result.
That's powerful. You know what? And now, what I love about it is, like, every time I go back to look at it, there's just something else that I've just missed, right? Like, there's so many things and so many layers in each of the images, and I didn't even realize her eye. And now I'm like, oh my God, you're right. She is staring just right at us, like, see me, right? And see me, and I see you seeing me, right? That's
another cool. Image that I like is the one about the beauty shop. The woman who has waves, she's got this, perfectly coiffed hairdo that she's, is it this one? Maybe it's not that one. This one is the one I like. It's just so cinematic. It looks like something, you know, straight out of a 1920s or 1930s movie. Floyd's artwork had such a cinematic quality to it. That's one reason that I wanted to work with him on this particular project.
Okay, and so I'm just thinking, what do you think you'll miss most about Floyd?
I guess just the fact that he's not here to create anymore. Floyd and I weren't in close contact all the time. He was political, like I was political. So, a lot of authors don't put political stuff on their timelines, but he did put political statements on his timeline, and he did, occasionally send me post via messenger, private post about political issues. So I miss that, and just knowing that I won't have the opportunity to work with him again.
Yeah.
Or see him at this, at the African American Children's Book Festival or other events where the family of Black children's book creators came together.
Okay. So, that was all the questions that I had, and I was just, is there any final thoughts, any final things that you would like to share with us? Any final messages? I know you said you had a couple messages that you would want to share.
Well, Floyd was a truth teller, and he really believed, like I do, in telling children the truth, that children are not too tender for tough topics, and that children not only deserve but will demand the truth. And like me, I think Floyd believed that once given the truth, they will know the right questions to ask. They know injustice when they see it, and they know to question injustice. They don't live in gray areas like we adults do. And I think Floyd knew that and respected that in children. And I hope that parents will do, and teachers will do the same.
So, thank you so much, for taking the time this morning. I know, like I said, I know you said you're very busy. Again, thank you for writing this beautiful book. Actually, I do have one question for you. Why the Once Upon a Time? Why did you choose Once Upon a Time?
Well, I knew that, first of all, I knew it was in the past. And as far as kids are concerned, 100 years ago is like the distant past. It may as well be like 1,000 years ago. Right. So I wanted to open with a familiar, kind of refrain. So I used Once Upon a Time to not only evoke nostalgia and hint that what is unfolding or what I'm showing you does not exist anymore, but I wanted to provide that like a comfort zone for kids. So the Once Upon a Time is something familiar, and there, the Tulsa of the past is something that's unfamiliar. And of course, the race massacre is something that's horrendous. And so I just wanted to, start them out in familiar territory with Once Upon a Time.
All right.
And of course, there's no happily ever after at the end. There's hope at the end.
Right.
But, until there are reparations, there is no happily ever after.
Okay.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for taking your time to, pay tribute to your dear friend, Floyd Cooper. And like I said, I hope that you do write this project. I'm hoping for a biography from you on his work. I'm not sure who would illustrate it, but, hoping that we do get a chance to see it, because I do believe that his work and his life, needs to be highlighted for the next generation and held on to.
Idea. I hope someone will do it, even if I don't get around to it.
Yeah,
and I'm sure someone will.
Yeah, and so hopefully we can inspire somebody to, make sure that his story isn't lost in the ways that so much of, our history is often lost and forgotten, right? And so hopefully I'm putting some sparks out there for you. Maybe if you don't do it, maybe somebody else who will be like, I think I've got a project for you. So hopefully we can get it done. Okay.
Thanks so much, Nicholl.
Thank you, and have a lovely rest of the day.
Thank you. You too.